the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Literally, the prophet Elijah in our first reading was running from this world. He knew his life was to end soon. He was being sought by the Israelites. He was ready to give up. He was starving to death. But through the miracle of an angel, God provided him with food for his journey. A miracle of food for a journey. 23 years ago this week, I was sitting in my office in Council Bluffs at St. Albert Schools. I was the president of St. Albert's. My brother Gene from Colesburg called me and said, I have some sad news. Pat, one of our older brothers, was diagnosed with inoperable colon cancer. He was 51, 3 weeks before his only daughter's wedding. I came home, of course, for the wedding, and 2 days after the wedding, Pat went to Iowa City for an experimental treatment. I came home again in November. His condition was worsening, and I celebrated a healing mass in their farmhouse with all of our family. I anointed him, and we prayed for a miracle. Particularly my sister-in-law, who is very devout. What would be a miracle for you? That world hunger would be over with overnight? That'd be a wonderful miracle. That a broken relationship will be made whole in our families? That would be a miracle for some families. A dying relative made healthy? Why don't miracles happen more often? Wouldn't our faith be stronger, actually, if we witnessed more miracles? Or maybe the right question to ask is our faith strong enough? Is our commitment to God strong enough, full enough, honest enough for a miracle to happen? Do any of you remember Dave Dravecky? Anybody? He was a pitcher for the San Francisco Giants, I don't know how long ago, but I do remember that he developed cancer in his pitching arm. And he prayed, and he claimed that God cured him, that it was a miracle. And he went back again and pitched baseball. Was his faith stronger than anyone else who suffers from cancer? You know, the prophet Elijah was sent by God to the people of Israel in a critical time in their history. They were the strongest nation and most powerful and political people. And in their pride and in their arrogance, they had abandoned their faith. They didn't worship. They didn't go before God in the synagogue nor the temple. Probably no different than so many of us in our culture who just don't have time or think they have more important things to do than worship. Elijah's words and his preaching angered the king of Israel, so he was on the short list. They were after him. And then Elijah says in that first reading, "It's enough, Lord. Just take my life. It's over." Elijah called to God in his pain. God fed him because Elijah surrendered himself to the will of God. God gave him what he needed to survive, not just his body, but his soul. I think miracles happen when we surrender to God's will. You know, when Pat was diagnosed, Iowa City doctors told us that he had 6 months. And almost 6 months to the day, death came. I was at a meeting in Arizona at Scottsdale when I got a call from one of my brothers to say, "You better come, it won't be long." The miracle we wanted was not going to happen. But over those 6 months, an incredible time, he was able to walk his daughter down the aisle at her wedding. For 6 months, literally hundreds of people gathered to pray and in vigil. 8 combines took care of his crops. Meals poured in. And all of us were there when he died. My brothers, my sister, his in-laws, and his 5 children. As we prayed and as he was actively dying, he had asked me early on that he wanted to have sung on eagle's wings when he was dying. And he also wanted it at his funeral mass. And we did it. We sang as best as we could. Our mother was the only one not there. She was confined to a wheelchair with a caretaker in her home. So after Pat died and we sang on eagle's wings, the 5 siblings got in the car to tell Mom Pat died. As we were driving out of that farm in the bottom pasture where there were bales of corn stalks, you know, those big round things, and on top of the corn stalks were 6 bald eagles who had never been sighted in that part of Delaware County ever. Pretty miraculously, I would say. We did experience a miracle. After all, a sign from God that perpetual light had descended on our brother. Amen.